Hey, my messy people. Welcome to another episode of Everything's Messy podcast. I am your messy host, Sarah. Okay, first, little housekeeping. My brother and his new wife are expecting, so I'm so excited for them. I just want to give them a big shout out. So excited what the future might hold for them. So, that was really important to get out of the way. If you didn't listen to my episode last week, we talked about all things summer, sunscreen, which ones are good and bad, the toxic chemicals that are put into it, the natural ingredients we should be using, and staying hydrated, how it messes with your blood sugar, all of the stuff that is summer. So go check that out if you didn't listen to it last week. So this week, I am definitely going to get a little messy. We're going to talk about this deep rabbit hole dive that I went onto. And it's really has to do with the things trending on TikTok for wellness. We're talking nicotine patches. We're talking all of the GLP ones, not necessarily the big O word that we're talking about, not the fun O word. And then we are talking about the cortisol cocktail that what I'm seeing, a lot of women are talking about on TikTok. So we are going to get messy into that little controversy going on and really just see, are these things good for us? Like, what are we really doing when we say, let's take nicotine patches? I'm kind of on the fence, but a lot of the deep dives that I did in the research, it kind of makes you scratch your head and go, how did we get here? What are we missing? We are so eager to look for that cheat sheet code of how we can be, thin with a pill. How do we not have to put in the hard work? And I'm not saying that maybe they don't work for a few people or some things, but I feel overall we're missing the whole point. And I will end with that after we go over the crazy trends that I'm seeing on TikTok. Okay, if you don't have TikTok, that's okay. I think they're trending on YouTube and other places too. But, TikTok is a great place to just find these very eccentric, different new things that people are talking about. And some are good and some are not so good. And so I've got all my notes here. So you'll see me wanting to make sure that I'm getting out the research and talking about it. I did so many notes for this episode, and it's going to be juicy because a lot of these topics that we're talking about, people really do want to believe them. And I will be very honest and call myself out. I was very, very, very close to being a guinea pig and trying this. And I'll tell you why I didn't as we get into it. So, can you think of a time where you were just so desperate to use one of these methods because you were just at your wit's end? And I certainly can. There have been so many times where, especially going through perimenopause, that I just wanted any answer, anything that I could grip into to help the weight, help the hormones, help the mood, the brain fog. I mean, again, the list goes on and on and on. And I think it has to do with I want that instant gratification. I want that, just tell me what I'm supposed to do, when really it comes down to, like I always talk about, taking accountability and responsibility and then putting in the hard work. And nobody wants to hear that. And then I didn't want to hear that either. I want the quick fix. I want the, you know, just tell me the easiest path. Who doesn't want that, right? Okay, wait. So let's get into this. All right. So we're talking about the nicotine patch trend on TikTok. Is it a weight loss hack? And I don't know. I mean, well, first let's get into it. A lot of the videos, and a lot of you, if you don't have TikTok, you can still search. It's out there. But those who are on TikTok watching it, people are swearing by this. People are gaining numerous amounts of followers. And if you're into the whole TikTok algorithm and how you get followers and whatever, these people are exploding, all because they're literally doing a video of a nicotine patch, taking scissors and they're quartering it, or they're putting it into thirds or even tenths, right? I think the standard nicotine patch that I read was like 21 milligrams. They want to put that into like 2 or 3, sometimes 10, just depending. I think one of the videos I watched, the magic number was 7. So it's just really, how we're getting drawn into this and why we are wanting to do this. Some people say they lost a few pounds. Some people said the brain fog went away. Aside from talking about just the addictive component of nicotine, and there's also some back and forth of that. It's not really the nicotine that's addictive. It's the additives they put in maybe a cigarette and things like that, which I'm not even going to comment on that because you need to use your common sense on that. But if we are looking at the science, and that was my big deep dive into it, there have been that they have tested these nicotine patches, and the result, especially they've tested in postmenopausal women, the result is nada, zip, no real weight loss. They actually ate more. It induced sugar cravings, and it didn't result in this major weight loss that they were hoping for. Now, a few things. We know innately that a cigarette is actually an appetite suppressant, but I believe that has a lot to do with how it numbs your taste buds, the smoke itself. And so you begin to lose your taste buds. You can't taste anything. Nothing tastes good because you have this smoke thing. And so that a lot of times it can do with weight loss. It also seems to be, um, the increasingness. You need more of that nicotine to keep going with that habit. But I am not sure that the patch is really going to result in the same thing. So again, nicotine, I don't want to get too controversial, but it is known to be highly addictive. And I'm not even talking about the chemicals in cigarettes. Let's just talk about the nicotine patch, right? It can increase your heart rate. It can increase your blood pressure. And, they talk about, well, there's a lot of naysayers out there. They tell you don't cut the patch because they want you to buy more, basically. And that might be the only honest statement that I'm getting from these nicotine videos from TikTok is they just want more money, so don't cut them. It's off brand if you cut them. And I just I don't think it's worth it. I haven't, again, people are just raving about it, getting buku's amount of followers. They are, talking about the weight loss. They're talking about it, how reset their brain fog. And I think the safest thing I will say is I'm going to hold off judgment for the actual effectiveness because I'm not sure it's been tested and been around long enough to actually give me the results I'm looking for. But from a science backed perspective, we know nicotine is addictive. We know it has issues having to do with cardiac health, blood pressure, stressful, all of this kind of stuff. We don't want to have that. And I'm going to say for weight loss, it's a no for me. I just don't think I just don't think I would risk it. I don't think it's worth it, especially, with my heart history. Those of you that don't have to deal with that, and also with just a chronic illness or a autoimmune disease to begin with, we're constantly fighting the inflammation to keep those flare-ups at bay. You introduce something like nicotine, I feel like you're going to introduce a flare up or more inflammation or make your body fight harder. And I'm just going to say that doesn't align with the things that we're trying to put on our body that are pure and good for us. And so it's a big no for me at this point. Again, I'm going to reserve ultimate judgment for more things to come out, but I just think the nicotine trend on TikTok, maybe it's a good way to just up your followers if that's what you're looking to do, but I wouldn't sacrifice your health for that. And again, I'm going to say big no for me. Okay. So again, I love talking about these TikTok videos and like what people are doing to become famous and making it go viral. Nobody ever asks, where did this even come from? And I think that's a big question for me too. Who's backing this? Who started this? Who pushed it out? Is it the nicotine gum companies because they know that they've had a decline in their cigarette products, and so now they're trying to push it through the gum or the patches? I mean, who's to say? I know that there was a video of Kennedy Jr., right? The new for the Maha movement, and he was in Congress and answering questions, and he had what looked to be a tobacco-less packet that he put in his mouth. And I don't know if he was the one who started it. I don't know why we see somebody on that level or a celebrity or something like that do something like that and we don't question why they're doing it. I want to say, um, you know, spinning it as a wellness or health thing that you should do, I don't think it should be in the space of wellness. But anyway, I know again we saw Robert Kennedy Jr. do that. We saw you know, some influencers do that. Just again, do your own homework, be diligent. Don't look for the easiest way, the shortcut way, because 9 times out of 10, or sometimes 10 times out of 10, you're not going to have the result, and or you're going to get, side effects that you didn't even know were possible. So again, big no for me. Okay, so let's go on to peptide therapy. This is another big thing trending on TikTok, and I don't mean the big O, right? We're not talking Ozempic, although that is classified as a peptide as well. So I'm talking about the others that are promoting that it's this biohacking gold pit that you can just get sucked into, and it's all about peptide therapy. So if you're under the direction of somebody who is naturopathic, homeopathic, even well versed in women's hormones and things like that, and these are being prescribed to you, okay, I can see maybe the benefit because they have your recent blood work in front of them. They know what they're working with. But the ones that are on TikTok that are selling the peptides that you can just buy whatever you need, I would be very cautious and careful, especially because we don't know the origin of where they're coming from. Even if they say how reputable they are and stuff like that, it's still a gamble. It's still a risk. And so the ones that they're talking about a lot, and this is, again, people are whispering about it, but they're not really talking out loud of what it might do in, hurtful in the long run, what it can cause. And I think those are the questions we need to be asking. So the first one, and let me make sure I get this right, CJC-1295. That is a big, big one that people are talking about for fat loss, muscle recovery, anti-aging, and metabolic resets. The other one is AOD-9604 and peptide YY. And so, okay, so these are all short chains of amino acids that mimic our influence hormones in your body. And some are showing some research, some real things. There's one, let me make sure I can get the name right. Tirzepatide, for example, it's helped people lose up to 21% of their body fat in a clinical study. Okay. The peptide YY has been shown to reduce appetite, and others like CJC stimulate growth hormone release, which can help recovery and fat metabolism. But, and it's a big but, most of these peptides are off label and they're not regulated when you buy them online. So again, that's just a really big gamble that you're taking if you're not going into a weight loss clinic, if you're not making sure that you're dealing with professionals who are getting these things. That to me is a serious risk that I don't know that, I mean, for all you know, it could be as harmless as injecting saline, or it could be much, much worse than that. So just make sure if this is the road you want to go down, that you're really vetting where these peptides are coming from. And it, the potential is there. I think we need some more studies done on it. The big focus seems to be on the big O, and there's been a lot of side effects that have come out of that. Most of the side effects, and I've talked a little bit about this before, and specifically speaking of Ozempic, it's slowing of your, you get gastroparesis, it slows your digestive system to the point where you can't do any kind of elimination. I think a lot of that could be off-brand as well. It's being prescribed off-brand, but I think a lot of it is abuse and misuse. And so I think sometimes it does get a bad rap, and people are like, well, if 0.5 is working for me, what'll 1.5 do? And if 1.5 is working, what'll 2.5 do? And so they keep increasing their amount that they're injecting, and then it's having these terrible results. I have heard Dr. Tina speak about it. I follow her a lot. She's wonderful. She does a whole 3-day, presentation. I think it's free if you go to her website. And she breaks it down very well. And she has a lot of clients under her where she monitors them and their intake. And she talks a lot about the microdosing of the Ozempic. And so, or GLP-1, as we should probably say. So that is something to really look at. I do think microdosing has a place in the right candidate, again, under the right supervision. So just be careful. And again, these other ones that are out there, the peptide YY and all these other things, I think under the right direction, I think under the right guidance, you might have some really beautiful success. Like I said, this one study said they lost up to 21% of their body weight. That's pretty significant. But again, I would ask at what cost, where's it coming from? And we probably need more to vet what we're looking at. So again, cool potential, but I can't say that I could recommend at this point to do it on your own or a do-it-yourself peptide. I don't. I think you need to work with a practitioner who knows peptides and can have your, blood work or things that they've had you fill out, their information in front of you. That's what I think we need to be focused on. Okay. The next one. This is the last one. This is a big one, getting juicy here. So if you're on TikTok and you're scrolling and it somehow starts to dump into your algorithm, the cortisol cocktail. Okay. How many people really believe, based on a checklist that they did searching their symptoms, that they have extremely high cortisol levels? Me, I believe that. So I'm always looking for ways to, how can I bring it down naturally? And some of the success that I've had has been in somatic yoga, has been in, making a morning and bedtime routine where I don't turn on my electronics 90 minutes after I get up. I don't have caffeine 90 minutes before I get up. I make sure I get my sun in the morning and at night to set that circadian rhythm. And that all has to do with cortisol and things like that. But what I'm seeing on TikTok, and again, we're not talking about it, they're just whispering about it. And it's a certain kind of tea. And I don't mean like, the tea, but there's an herbal tea or this and that. And they turn it into basically, and again, they put it under this wellness topic. And I'm not sold. Doesn't mean the things that they're saying is not good for you in a certain way, but the secret formula they're mostly talking about is coconut water, orange juice or lemon juice, and a dash of pink salt. And I don't know that they can legitimately say that that lowers cortisol or reduces belly fat or gives you a calm, clean energy boost. To me, I kind of wish it was that easy. I don't think it is. Look, the mix that they suggest, it's hydrating. That's great. That's probably tastes really good. It's got, citrus in it, some vitamin C, and maybe a little adrenal support, which we definitely need the adrenal support. But does it magically lower cortisol levels? I don't know. This is what I know. This is what has been tried and true. It's habits, routine, and part of that routine is prioritizing sleep. Talked about sleep on this program before. You need to make sure you're prioritizing your sleep. You need to have a good bedtime routine. You need to make sure you're shutting your electronics off a good hour or more before you go to bed. You need to make sure that you're not eating 3 hours before you go to bed, or after 3, if there's that 3-hour window. If you go to bed at 9, don't eat anything after 6 o'clock at night. Make sure your digestive system is clear. You're taking magnesium, the malate or the glycate. That's going to put you in a relaxive state. I am also a big proponent of L-theanine. I have been taking that. That is amazing. Completely relaxed state. Ditching the overtraining and under eating. Yes, we need the exercise. Absolutely. But if you are, excessively lifting weights, excessively doing cardio, and you're not giving your body the proper fuel, that's going to stress you out too, which is going to raise your cortisol. So we need to make sure we're not doing that. We need to, implement a routine that's going to give us both the exercise and then the good nutrition. And that has to go hand in hand. And a lot of people too, they think, oh, the more that I work out, the more I'm going to lose. And that is not necessarily true, because as I've said before, you cannot outrun a bad diet. Okay. Do you understand what I'm saying? You cannot outrun a bad diet. So no matter, I don't care if you're running 10 miles a day, if you're eating like crap, you're not, maybe at first you might, But long-term damage, long-term stress, long-term cortisol levels, that's all going to be raised. Adrenal support won't be there. You need to make sure you're getting enough protein, you're getting enough fat, and you're getting the right amount of carbs. And my favorite, right? To make those cortisol levels go down, what do you need? Even if you're not a diabetic, is your blood sugar. The impact of stabilizing your blood sugar is going to be across the board, any facet of any flame up that you're having, whether it be adrenal support, whether it be cortisol, stress, not sleeping. All of these things are linked back to regulating your blood sugar. And we've talked about that before. If you like the concoction of the coconut water, orange juice, lemon juice, and salt, think of it as an electrolyte drink versus a cortisol, be all end all hack. And if you like it, drink it, but don't expect it to cure the chronic stress, especially if you're not changing the things that are causing your body and your mind stress. We've talked about breathing techniques. There's a ton of modalities out there. The somatic yoga, that's been a big one for me. There's all kinds of videos on YouTube about it, how to practice it, how long you need to do it. That just is a better to start to me to add that habit into your routine. Again, we constantly talk about habit stacking, and that 1% compound interest that's going to return your results. That's what we need to be focusing on. We want there to be, but there is not a, magic pill out there. The magic pill has to come from you. The magic pill, the magic formula has to come from you prioritizing what your body needs. And changes are not going to come until you implement those. And so, is it hard? Yes, because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it and not looking for these quick hacks on TikTok. So make sure you are putting the time and effort, because you're all you have. I've said this before. Your body is what you've got to live with. So treat it with respect, discipline, support, and give it everything that it needs. All right. Are these interesting? The nicotine, the peptides, the cortisol drinks? Yes, they're very interesting. And I feel like I get entertained by a lot of these. And again, looking at the algorithm and how they started with 25 followers and now they have 500, it's like, how even are you doing that? And it's all in the content, which to me in and of itself shows that maybe this isn't the best, hack. It's just people interested, or they're searching that particular word and this is what's coming up. And then they end up liking the video. Look, again, I'm all for growing your social media accounts. I'm all for getting people to look at your content. But don't be duped by these fast, quick thinking or quick, results concoctions that people are coming up with, because I feel like we need to be smarter than that. And again, I'm not saying that they don't work. Maybe some people have seen mild improvement. I just think the risk doesn't outweigh what the reward is. So the most promising, though, I will say, is definitely the peptides. More information needs to be out there. And I do feel like they need to be a little more readily accessible for people to, it shouldn't cost an arm and a leg. You should be, and this is across the board with any holistic medicine. We should have access to more naturopathic, homeopathic doctors that don't cost an arm and a leg, that we can get vital and true, correct information from, that we can work with for these peptides and anything else that's out there. So I think those are all, the more simplified we can make it, the better it off will be for us, because the more time we have to spend with it, the more time we have to, try and figure it out on our own or do the research. Again, you guys know I'm a nerd. I'm doing the research for you, but we also have to take some accountability of what we're putting into our body, and is that if that's right for us. So these have been crazy, wild trends that I've been seeing. I do love talking about it. It's messy. It's all messy, right? So if you've seen any crazy, wild wellness trends on any social media platform, send it to me, because first of all, I find it entertaining and I love anything that's messy. And, I want to share it, and maybe even it'll get on a future episode and we'll talk about it, and I'll call you out on it for sending it to me. So do that. Let's keep the conversation going. Don't be afraid to ask those messy questions, but really know, and I think most of my messy listeners know that. We have to come up with a fun name too. Messy listeners is just too long. Messy tribe, maybe. I don't know. We'll work on that. But you guys are the heart of this. I couldn't do this without you. I love talking to you with all about all of this messy stuff. So keep sending in your questions. Let's keep talking about it. Let's keep entertaining each other, getting messy because I love to get messy. And let's see what else we can dig up, and I can jump down that data rabbit hole and figure out what we can come up with. So thank you so much for listening to another episode of Everything's Messy podcast. We are 2 away from my 100th episode. So excited. I have a little something special planned, trying to get it all together. Hopefully I'll make it in time. I always say that, but somehow I'm always able to pull it off no matter how messy it looks. I would love if you will join the conversation. Again, send me a DM if you found another weird, wild habit that they're doing. I want to know. Oh, I will say this. I do love the exercise challenges that I've seen, whether it be mother-daughter duo, husband-wife duo, son-son, daughter, like all of those combinations with where they're doing the push-ups or they're in the push-up stance and they've got a kick-ass song that they're working out to and they're staying in sync. I love, love, love those challenges. So send me any of those. I'm going to try and talk my daughter into doing one with me here and recording it. So anyway, I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening to Everything's Messy. And as always, keep it messy.